in that, let's say in the reverse order of that. Seems being slow. Okay, now everybody's in. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to our last panel of the day. It's our fan chat to find out what you liked about the day and if there was anything what you didn't like, what you want to see us do next year, all that stuff. So, you know, we're ready to hear what you have to say. And everybody should be able to unmute themselves if they want to talk. I'm pretty sure I have it set that way. Yep. And you can start your video if you want to, because, you know, on this panel, we do want to see your faces. But if you want to hide them, you know, that's okay too. Anybody want to start off?
Well, I really enjoyed the media panel. We got a lot of last minute guests and things, which was pretty good. And I wish we'd had a little more time for them. But you know, it was nice to hear from them and to hear their different points of view and to hear about all the things that do go into creating
I agree.
something.
Next year, I think we should ask Richard ahead of time whether he thinks he wants 60 minutes or 90 minutes for that panel, because we've gone back and forth on it, and sometimes he wants longer and sometimes he wants shorter. So we went with shorter, and it turns out we could have gone longer.
Actually, last year, he wanted even less time. He only wanted 30 minutes as well. We can make it 45.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of it is who can he get? How many people are there going to be? You know, because if he's only got 2 or 3 people, then it doesn't make any sense to go a whole 90 minutes unless it's people, you know, that can talk and fill up the whole 90 minutes and not just be yakking, you know, fill it up and be entertaining, I should say. Because as we know, Steve could put on a whole 1 hour panel all by himself, and
it would be a good one
for anybody. And yeah, so that one's always so hard to decide. How much time do we do for that one? You know, Michelle, I'm pretty sure we could do 2 hours with Michelle and still all be like, okay,
oh yeah,
we make it longer. And I'm pretty sure that Bridget's panel would have been awesome on the Europa Clipper. So Shelly, you're on mute. That's okay. You should be able to.
I had so many good questions for her.
Yeah, hang on to them, because I'm sure she can do the same thing next year.
Except that they're all about, a lot of them were about the Europa project, and that, you know, I get it, she'll still have the information next
Oh
year.
Yeah. And I'm sure she'll still have permission to do that one. She had to ask for permission to do that presentation. But I'm sure she'll be able to do that again. And for those of you who didn't hear, she's fine. She just got her weekends mixed up and completely forgot. And so it's all good. And told her that we had a sciencey discussion amongst ourselves and we enjoyed it. And you know, that, like I said, everybody was just concerned that something had happened to her, and everybody would be happy that she was okay. And it was just cross wires on weekends getting mixed up.
So I think a good practice, if we have like a panel of potentially uncertain length, maybe to since we're only announcing like the start times of panels, just leave more time for that panel, and then if it finishes early, then we can have a break, and if not, then it can go longer.
Well, that's an idea. Just book it for 90 minutes, like the Hollywood panel, book it for 90, and if we don't need it, then we get a extra dinner break or something kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is certainly something to think about. What do you guys think about with the panels having 15 minutes in between each one of them? Is that a good plan? Everybody
I think so.
I like it.
Well, we did it last year because basically it was just Teri and I doing the recordings, and this allowed us enough time in between since we were alternating each one. And I think it gives us a nice break, because then we can watch everything and not have to go take a personal break for whatever we needed to take a personal break for.
Yeah. Right. Everybody gets a chance for a bio break in the middle, whether that's run to the lavatory or go get a drink or both. For people who are quick at one of them or both of them. Yeah, that's
At
always
least you don't have to climb around a pyramid to get one.
right. Thank God.
Don't you dare pee on those stones.
Oh my God. I always knew that the pyramids were big, but I recently saw a photo of it was like a more close-up photo of somebody sitting on one of the lower stones.
Yeah.
And even though I'd seen like far away shots of somebody standing on one, for some reason that still didn't give me the right perspective.
No,
But
that one,
seeing-
I know the shot you're talking about.
yeah, seeing a close-up of somebody sitting on one so that you could really see how big those stones were was
And how
just
many are above her.
oh my God, amazing. Like like I said, I don't think I really understood exactly how big they were until I saw that photo.
The only thing I can say is they are huge. I've seen them, I've touched them, I've been inside the great one, which is they have a little, you duck walk down this path and then you look around and, oh, okay, and then you walk back out. What the one thing that surprised me is when I saw the Sphinx, and it was okay. Every time you see it, you see this giant thing, and then you see the pyramids in the background. Well, the staging area where they had you stand to watch, you're going, I go, where's the rest of it?
The Sphinx.
And it's because I was farther away. Now, I'm sure if I stood next to it, I would, be able to really appreciate its size. But from where we were, it was almost like, seeing Mount Rushmore. That's kind of disappointing when you're so far away from it. But then if you were any closer, you really wouldn't see the details. So they have their reasons, but I'm just going, no, I really expected it to be bigger.
Yeah, sometimes that just does happen that something's with the pyramid bigger than you think it is. Long time ago, I got the chance to go to the Louvre, that museum in Paris, and we went into the room where the Mona Lisa is, and my first thought was, "Holy shit, that's tiny." I always thought it was bigger, and it was just this dinky little, from my mind, dinky. It's what, 11 by 17 or something. It's not very big.
But it's small compared to what, we're thinking, huge. And
I was thinking at least about a 2 foot by 4 foot kind of thing, at least, and
Yeah.
little guy, and it's like, nah. And yeah, so sometimes when you don't really have anything to give you perspective from something, it's just impossible to tell how big or how tiny something is.
I remember the first time I saw the Grand Canyon, it was early August. I worked there for 2 years, so I lived there, but the first time I drove in before I'd started my job and walked out on one of the points and looked at the canyon for the very first time in early August. It's probably 90 some degrees on the top where I was, and it was probably 100 and something down at the bottom. And it was just like flat, and I go, this is it? This is all there is? And I came with a friend, and we both just kind of looked at each other and go, what is, this?
What's all the hype about?
There was no color because it was midsummer and the heat was rising out of it, and it was flat in color and just didn't look like much. It was just hard to get a sense that it was anything. But then you see it when it's before a rainstorm and the lightning, it's light, or you see it in the winter when all the colors are crisp and pure, with snow on top. I mean, and every day it was different.
Oh,
but
wow.
the day we arrived, it was just flat, and I could see people coming and seeing it and going, what's the big deal? I didn't learn what the big deal was until, I'd been there a while and seen it through all of its different
It may depend on where your first sight of it is.
Yeah, right. Well, it was south, it was, near the south village, so
Yeah.
one of the overlooks before you get there.
I haven't ever been to the Grand Canyon, so one of these days I'll make it. It's on my bucket
well,
list.
My suggestion is don't go in the middle of the summer, go in the mid-fall or even the winter, because that's when it looks the most beautiful to me.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's not so hot and it's not so crowded.
Yeah, you don't want to go in the summer. It's just so crowded. I worked there in 1977, 76, 77, and into 78. And so a long time ago. And I can only imagine how much more crowded it is now. It was very crowded then.
Well, you don't want to come this way in the summer, no matter what.
No,
Right.
that's true.
Not unless you're
But that's when it is the most crowded, is in the summer. I mean, that's when
that's
people get their vacation.
traveling, but any of us that live this way know
Yeah.
this is not, I mean, come now. It's beautiful.
Right, that's what I mean.
Mhm.
Go in the winter. It's the most beautiful in the winter. And if there's snow at the, on the top of it, at 7,000 feet, it's gorgeous.
Mhm.
I can't even describe it. It's just a whole different experience.
The only thing you risk if you come at this time of year is some things are closed, but
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. And there are a lot of things, other tourist things that may not be available, but in the heat of the summer, it just kind of takes the enjoyment out.
Oh, it does, yeah. Yeah, even though living there in the summer was fine, because really it gets up in the low 90s there. It's not hot like Phoenix gets hot because
no.
you are at altitude.
But you probably wouldn't be only going to that. You know what I mean? You'd be doing other things too, probably. And
I mean, and Flagstaff is okay that time of year too, because they're
yeah, like,
well,
well,
yeah, it is.
but if you go down to Phoenix, yeah. But yeah, so I know it is funny how when you see things for the first time that there's been a lot of hype about it, sometimes it's just deflating.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. That got me thinking. I wonder what else like other people have experienced along those same lines, where you go to see it and you go, "What is the big deal?" It's
Yeah,
just,
what's the big deal about this?
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've had a few of those. I just can't think of one off the top of my head, but yeah. I mean, I've seen a
That's
few
one of the
things
things
that
that makes me nervous about.
Huh?
Sorry, I was just thinking that's one of the things that makes me nervous about the possible television series, is that we all have such images in our head
oh, yeah,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
might not
Yeah.
live up to it.
yeah, it wouldn't, yeah, and it would be deflating in a whole different way.
it
That's
won't
why
live
I
up.
can't bear to watch this.
You need to just be ready for that. It won't
Yeah.
live.
And it won't please everyone anyway. Something that somebody thinks was really cool, somebody else won't like. So
That is true.
But it will draw more attention to the books. Either way,
Also true.
That is true,
which will be good for Bear.
yeah.
Yeah.
right?
So the one of the things that you just have to hope is that whatever they wind up doing with it, Vera likes, because that's going to be the part that counts.
Yeah.
Well, and that's going to be the hardest part, because I think most authors don't have the control that they want to have.
Oh,
So
not at
A
all.
lot of them do not. Yes, that is true.
You have to be J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or
well, even she
Kathy-
tells
even he.
stories about her first book and how, I mean, she gained control pretty quick, but early on she didn't have it.
I was going to say Kathy Reichs had a lot of, well, supposedly had a lot of control over what happened on Bones, but I still don't understand why they did what they did with that. Did you guys watch Bones?
It was very
I-
different
They
from the
did
books.
some, but not.
Yes, it was very, very
I
different from
watched
the
it,
books.
but I hadn't read the book.
Yeah, so I read the books and I was very much looking forward to seeing the book made into a TV show, because that was what they'd promised. And then the only thing they had in common with the books was the name of the central character's first name. And
Oh,
and her
no.
last name. Not her middle name wasn't even the same, and nothing else was the same. She was completely different. Her
Oh.
job was different.
No, not at
Her
all.
history was different. I mean, like none of it, and I'm like, well, okay, I get it if you want to make a TV show and you wanted to make that TV show, but just name her something else, because all you've successfully done is piss off everybody that's read the books.
Yeah.
And
Didn't even know it
Yeah,
was based on a book.
I treated them as two completely separate things.
well, yeah, you have to,
Once I saw
but
that what it was going to be like.
but the
But yeah, no, her
thing that I
books, her
read
books are
going into
very
that
different.
said it was based on the books, and that was a lie. If they just said this is a show by Kathy Reichs, I would have said, "Oh yay, I like what she writes," and then I would have gone to watch it, and I would not have had any expectations whatsoever.
Well, I do remember an interview with, you'd mentioned Stephen King, when, was the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of The Shining, the one with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
He hated
Stephen
it.
King did not have creative rights on that one. He, said, "Oh no, I don't need it." And almost everything was changed. And he
Yep.
said he thoroughly regretted it. And then they redid it. And from that point on, he had a say in what was put on film.
Yeah, from
And-
one of his
and
books,
Some
almost
of the
all of
movies
his,
turned out really well and some were not.
But Vera,
well, some of his books weren't that good. So,
Right, that's right.
I mean, at one point I had all of his books, and then he started getting strange.
He started getting
that was
really weird after the car accident, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
some
and
people used
and
to
then
say that other people were writing the books, that he wasn't even writing them anymore. I don't know if that's true, but
well, unless he had a different personality, that's no, he wrote them.
yeah.
But he was also on a lot of painkillers and using other substances, and that you could, that definitely had an effect on his books.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
I think
then
that
he
that
got-
would have made anybody, going through that, happen to them.
It's not inconceivable that he was hooked on opioids for a while.
Yeah, I got run over by a car, but not as badly as he did, and it was not fun. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mind blow for me was probably the movie adaptation of Heinlein's Starship Troopers.
Oh my
That
God.
one, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's another one where they kept the title. Yeah, and not much else. Yeah, and it's like they just changed so many things that made the book and made the story very interesting. And it was like the people who did the adaptation went, "Oh, we don't need that."
Yeah, it was like Nazis and bugs that fart fire or something. I was just like,
Yeah.
and Desi Flores was a dude in the book. He wasn't even a girl.
Well, okay, so for some of that, I can kind of go, okay, fine, you changed it from a guy to a girl or whatnot. But the fact that they got a complete personality change is what drove me crazy. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so I get it that when you take a book or something and you make it into a TV show or a movie, especially if you make it in a movie, okay, we don't have enough time to cover all the plot points, and we're going to take these two characters and combine them in one because we can't have that many characters in this movie.
Yeah.
Get that, but you don't take somebody who was Mr. Goody Two Shoes, never done a thing wrong in their life, and then turn them into a villain, which is kind of what happened with Starship Troopers. It was like, wait a minute, that was not, no. Yeah, so that
Well, I mean, I know in Harry Potter, I went, when I saw the movies, I had, it was date nights with my nephews. It was David, and Danny. And on some of them, Doug came, and some Dennis came. And Dennis and David had read all the books. I had read, all the books. And so we would come home. We'd order pizza, grab, pizza. We'd always go to the midnight show. Then we'd, get a couple of pizzas. And since most of the places were closed, pop them in the oven. And then we would sit and have pizza and talk about the differences. Okay, well, in the book, they did this. And well, you know what? I didn't really, no, it was so-and-so that did this with Harry. And they just totally took out this one character and combined him with this character. And I mean, it was fun. I mean, for us, just to have that discussion.
Yeah,
I think you can count on the fact that a lot of people that are going to see the movies or the TV shows or whatever have never read the books or know nothing about them. And so we're creating, they're grabbing the title to maybe pull some people in, but they probably think, well, a lot of people who watch this won't really know much about it, and so they won't care.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
remember
that's
with the Harry Potter
what's
books, there were two things I was going to say. The one was, supposedly they said, okay, this movie's just from this book. The next movie's from that book. And they get to about the fourth movie and they start borrowing ahead into the next book for stuff. And I was like, oh, no. You guys said you weren't going to do that. Flag on the play that they did. And the other one was, it was another example of a character where they go, I was like, no, they specifically point out in the book that this character would never have done this thing. And so in the movie, you had them do that thing. And it's like, no, I'm not buying that. But again, like Carrie said, if you hadn't read the books, you wouldn't know that character would never have done it. I cannot remember, it was one of the girls.
I would have found.
You would have found what?
Yep.
Yeah, Teri, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
What I found about it is, or what I would have thought anyway, is that if you hadn't read the books, that the movies would be very confusing, because having read the books, I could extrapolate things. But if you hadn't read the books, certain parts just didn't make sense.
So my brother never read the books and he watched the movies, and back then I was still talking to him. And so after the movies would come out, I would talk to him sort of like you did with your family, Nancy, but instead of talking about how the books differed from the movies, I would ask him what he thought was going on in places where I knew something because it was in the books that they'd left out of the movie. And so what happened was sometimes he was a bit confused, but sometimes he got something completely different out of it than what I did because I knew what was in the book, so.
Well, and see, what in that same vein, like I said, David and Dennis read the books, but Doug and Dan had not. And Dan said he wasn't going to read them. So for him, it was just going, really? That was in the book? Oh, okay. And I didn't, and it was kind of like, well, I didn't get that. And another very good example is Outlander.
Okay, I've never seen
Talk
it.
about, borrowing from a future scene. They had this one character who dies in in book 7. He's a bad guy.
What?
But they had him die in season 6, which, I mean, they've been doing, each season has been a book, because of, well, okay, there's only going to be a short time for this guy, and we don't want to, hang on to this particular storyline. We can end it here and start with something new.
What book
So
are you talking about, Nancy?
Outlander.
Oh, well,
And then with that one, I saw the series, started the series before I ever read the books.
well, I hope Vera, it will be realistic enough to realize that it may not follow exactly what she wants.
She
I
said
mean,
once a
It's
long
not-
time
it's
ago
not
that she
going
had completely given up any idea of any artistic control over what was going to happen. She was like, I sold the rights, it's theirs now. So I think she will be accepting of it. She may be very disappointed, but I think she accepts that the end
She
product
hasn't,
will not
she
be-
hasn't sold the rights.
well, they're still talking to her about it. It's not like she doesn't have anything to do with it.
I think she optioned the rights, but that doesn't mean she
Well-
gave them up.
She didn't give up the rights. She has certain things that she has final say on.
Cool.
So she did not give up, give up the rights like I'd mentioned in Stephen King with the first Shining. I mean, he just said, okay, here you go, do whatever you want. And they did. And he had nothing to say about it.
Oh yeah, and that forgot
Never
I
do that again.
yeah, I've seen I had read The Shining and then I saw the Stanley Kubrick version and I was like, yeah, no, that's not the same thing. And then I
No,
saw
it
the one
wasn't.
when they redid it into a mini series and went, okay, that's more like the book. Yeah.
Sometimes the books, the movies and TV series do some weird things with how people look too.
Yeah.
Sometimes the character, it really doesn't matter what they look like, but sometimes, like in Vera's book, I mean, Asen has some characteristics that if they make it somebody that has none of those characteristics, that'll be really strange. Even if he has the right personality, although I can't imagine they wouldn't, because it's not like it would not be an appealing look. But sometimes they do things just because they have a actor or an actress that they think would be good for it, and then they do something they think will be commercial. But that would be a huge departure from the book.
Like my thought on that one, Kathleen, was like, you should not, I won't say could, should not have some like 5 foot tall blonde skinny thing playing Gwen. It's like, no,
Right.
Yeah, that won't work. Yeah.
Right. Even if it's, and I'm going to use the wrong name, but even if it's somebody very popular, which they probably won't get for this movie anyway, but you can't do it just to draw in a crowd, because that would just not, it wouldn't fit the story at all. But maybe they don't, I think sometimes they don't care.
Right.
If the looks are a plot point, then they really should be true to that. But then I think about when they made that Dark Tower movie, what was it, a couple years ago, with Idris Elba as Roland. And I will watch the heck out of anything with Idris Elba, and I'm not gonna lie. But if you read the books, there's like a whole thing about how he's basically like a Clint Eastwood type. And there's this whole racial tension with Odetta, Susanna, and all that.
Yes.
And that was totally lost with that. I was like, how are they going to deal with that? Oh, leave Susanna out of it. Okay.
I never
but she
read
was
the
a
Dark
vital
Tower
part.
stuff, so I didn't really know.
She was a
It's so
vital
good.
part of it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so I can see where that would have been weird. Yeah, if you read that book and then go, okay, wait a second, a lot of this character's trials, if you will, and tribulations is based on the fact that he's this white dude and you made him black, or vice versa,
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Well, there are a lot of discussions of that nowadays, even when it comes to simple things like the animated stories, and
My daughters and I were talking about The Little Mermaid versus Snow White. Like The Little
Right.
Mermaid, who cares whether she's a ginger? Snow White, her looks are literally the foundational plot point.
Right. Yeah, again, with the whole, you can't make her a diminutive little blonde girl, because that doesn't work. That's not the plot. You're right. The plot's driven by what she looks like. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll happen in our lifetime and we'll be able to.
Yeah, really. My God, I know things.
Shelley, you're muted again.
Yep. Stop muting yourself.
I
I was coughing earlier.
Oh, okay.
I keep hoping that I'll live long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's been so many, yeah, anyway, never mind.
Oh, no, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, you got to know that a lot of the authors, if they do sell their story, that they hate whatever got done with them. But I've gotten to talk to a few of them that were happy with what happened, to their stuff, like the Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon about the dragon. And they made a movie out of it years ago. He liked the movie. He said, "Yeah, I was happy with what they did." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." That. And but then you get people like you were saying, like Stephen King with the first version of The Shining that went out. Basically the version, the main version of "Oh hell no," so.
Exactly. Well, I mean, even in like Outlander,
Oh, it's like
one of the characters dies at the end of, like the first book. And in the TV show, the guy that played the act, that played that particular character was so popular with the fans that they figured out a way that he didn't die, because we never see him die. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't die, and they meet up with him later, and I mean, it made sense. And someone did ask Diana Gabaldon what she thought of it, and she said, when I first wrote it, yeah, I wanted this guy to die. And she says, but after seeing what they did with him and they resurrected him basically in her point of view, she says, I kind of like that, and I wished I hadn't killed him off.
Yeah.
Like those alternate ending books.
I've never really run into those alternate ending books.
When I was in grade school.
Oh yeah, the choose your own adventure books.
Yeah, there are a
Yeah.
lot of those.
No, I don't know how I managed to go my whole life and never encounter one, but I did.
No,
My
Oh.
granddaughter,
You
my-
can just hit, now, if you want this to happen, go to page such and such.
Oh,
If you
that.
want
Right.
this,
Yep.
go to this page, and then I want this. So
I heard about them. I just never ever had one. And so, yeah, I never got to have that particular experience. However, I have done the alternate endings thing on like movies and stuff. And every once in a while, the alternate ending is way better than what they picked to be on the theatrical release. And every once in a while, the director's cuts of things are much better than the theatrical one, where you go, well, shit, that made much more sense. Why didn't they just leave that in?
Yeah, my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters really loves those. She's 14 and she searches them out. She's not reading the little kid ones. She searches them out. She really enjoys that. And she says it's helped her in her she does some creative writing, and it's helped her because it makes her think differently. She likes it.
She likes the alternate
well,
ending.
and the thing is, you can
Because it makes her be more creative.
Yeah, I can see
well,
that.
and the thing is, with those types of books, you can read them 10 times, and you can read them differently each time.
Yeah.
So, you're at point A and point, okay, well, does the girl, okay, we'll take Gwen Asen and Logan. Okay, does she stay with Logan or does she go with Asen? Well, you're going to pick Logan and you've got this story. She picks Asen and then you've got this other story. And you just go back and forth. And you can just keep making them different.
These days, I think that's the hole, if you will, that fanfic tends to fill in. Because, in Vera's version, she goes with Asen, right? But maybe somebody wants to know what if she did go with Logan? Then they'll go write that as fanfic, kind of thing. I don't know how
Or,
many people write
and Zelio
Atlantis
got
Trail
that.
fanfic, but
Or
Yeah.
Zellia.
Or she and Zelio.
right, exactly. Like, there's any number of points at which you could veer off and pick the other thing that happened, the other path, so to speak, and which is sort of the entire idea of a multiverse, that every decision you make, there's a world in which you made the other one,
I used to be a Marvel fan, but I don't trust anything anymore.
I completely understand that.
Loki
Oh.
ruined it all. Loki spoiled it all.
As
I mean,
usual.
why try to figure anything out?
Yeah. Yeah. That last season was a humdinger when it of
Well,
Loki.
it's still kind of fun to watch, but you have no idea what's going on, and you
That's
can't predict anything. I mean, anything could happen. Anybody can come back, anybody can die, anybody can live.
Yeah. Did you watch the 2 seasons of What If?
I did, but I've heard about it, and I agree that that would be the same thing. These books that my granddaughter reads aren't quite like the alternate universe kind of thing. Most of them are like the last fourth of the book or something is different. In other words, it wouldn't be like one of Vera's stories where Gwen goes with somebody else. It would be changed just the last few chapters, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
isn't a whole alternate concept, but those alternate universe things they're like totally different stories.
Cool. Well, that's what a lot of the genre of alternate history is based on. It's like, okay, let's take this one thing in history and make that different, and then extrapolate what would have happened to this country or this planet or whatever after meaning Earth, like what if Hitler had won World War II, or what if, what was it? Ferdinand never died and World War I didn't start, and just all kinds of things. Like, what if the other side had won the Civil War? I mean, there's just all kinds of ways you can go with that, and some people are really, really good at trying to, figure out what they think would have happened. It makes it interesting. So to me, technically it's science fiction because it's a thing that didn't happen, but I kind of don't want to call it science fiction because it's so much of it is based in reality. So I don't know. I always have a hard time with like labeling some things. It was like, meh,
It's
but
like historical science fiction.
yeah,
I thought they were called alternate histories.
But I
yeah,
thought,
that's what it was. If I didn't say
it's really
alternate
not
history, I
science
meant to.
fiction because, they're not telling you how that happened. They're just saying in a different world, the Civil War never happened, or we still have slavery or something how would that be? And that's really just an alternate history.
Yep. And then the Eric Flint stuff was a little alternate history-ish, I think. Oh God, now I can't remember what it's called, but this whole entire town kind of wound up being time traveled back into the past, and then they went from there. So it's not exactly alternate history, but kind of. And I cannot remember the names of the books now.
Years and years and years ago, I used to read an author called Harry Turtledove. He was he did a lot of those alternate history
A lot of her alternate history, yes.
And he was a very good writer.
John
Very,
Health books, Terry?
yeah.
So what was that, Mary?
Are you talking about the John Helt books? HELDT?
Are you
No.
asking me or Carrie?
You, Terry.
That does not sound familiar, but
And it's a series of books, an author who's written a bunch of books where people have time traveled and, things, they tried to change certain things and certain things didn't have, couldn't be changed.
is the name you're giving me the character or the author?
The author.
Oh no, the author that I was talking about was Eric Flint, and I just can't remember the name of the books. But there's like entire fan clubs up around those books. I read the first one and I went, okay, it's not bad. I just can't remember what it's called now. But Harry Turtledove. I've never read any of his stuff, but I know about it. yeah.
He was really good. I read quite a few of his books. I haven't read everything he's ever written, but I read a lot of his books for a while.
Cool.
They're very good.
Didn't he also write books with, is it S.M. Sterling, who kind of took Turtle Dove's idea and bounced it a different direction?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds familiar.
That could be. I may have not proceeded that far along because this was a pretty long time ago that I was reading those.
Yeah, they started doing joint books. And then there was a whole lot of authors that started doing joint books with other people. And then that just got crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is how you wound up with all the new Dune stuff.
I like Dune.
So we got off topic by quite a bit. I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to talk
Wandering
about
around.
that they particularly loved or hated, because that happens to us when we start talking.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah, we veer off and then we veer back and then we,
I
yeah.
will say that I really was disappointed that we didn't get more people because it was such a good day.
I
was.
know, I
Wish
am
more
kind of,
people had been here to share it because I think they would have all had a good time.
we had like about 80 people sign up to come.
Not that many on Discord.
Right. But I mean, the people that went out and
Last I
registered,
counted, it was 44.
right.
Yeah. And of those, I'm not sure everybody participated today. I think maybe
And in the
30.
panels that I have done so far, the highest number was 23. And that was in about 3 or 4 of the panels.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
I haven't looked yet.
How does that compare to other times?
Well, percentage wise, it's about the same. Number wise, it's down. But we had quite a few new folks. And then I
Yeah.
also have to look at who's watching the videos that they can't do it live. So they're watching the videos and I count that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's, actually, as far as participation in the class, in the actual panels, it's about the same as it was last year and the year before.
Do you think it's because she hasn't had a new big book?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so.
I was about to say
Yes.
that the numbers always go down when there's not a really recent book.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
also
because
getting
they're-
harder.
Yeah.
Also
That
getting
and
harder
the
to do
fact
a day
that
on
people-
Zoom.
That's
This
true.
is a commitment to Zoom.
Yeah.
And so many people have other things that they can do now. When we did the first couple, we were still
Stuck at
in
home.
the throes of COVID and
Yeah.
But this is basically no different than going to a convention. So,
Well,
Yeah.
it
and then
is.
even then, you're still committing the time.
You're still
Yeah.
committing the time, but
Hard to sit in a chair all
also-
day.
pardon?
it is.
Hard to sit in a chair all day.
Right. Well, I was gonna say,
Yes.
even if you're at a convention and you're kind of sitting in a chair all day, you still have the option of getting up and wandering around and going grabbing coffee and talking to some people and go grab food,
Right.
and sit down
Yeah,
for
and that-
a little while and still, yeah, those of us who are like me and I live by myself, Shelley lives by herself, where we're in a chair all day long, all by ourselves, where if this was enough, if we were at a convention, we'd be, like a live one, we'd be around other people. Or even if we didn't have a convention thing to do, we could go to the movie, go to the mall, go get groceries, we'd be around people. And like you said, the first couple were when we were busy not being around people for a while
Yeah.
on purpose. And now it's kind of gone the other way around. So yeah, Sharm's right. It's like, yeah, okay, now you want me, we're asking people to devote an entire day to sitting in a chair at their house, and for a lot of us not being around other people when we otherwise could. So that affects the numbers.
But I mean, on the flip side, you've got people like me. I was like out and about today. I spent most of the day in town. I had my kids at karate and all this stuff. And because,
Yeah.
you can get on Zoom on your phone. And so that for me was actually super convenient because I didn't have to be tied to my computer.
Maybe we should
So-
push that more. Like, hey, you don't have to sit in front of your chair at your computer all day. I mean, a few of us do, obviously, because, we're running the things. But, it's like, yeah, get on your phone and do the Zoom from, the parking lot for an hour. Or
Well-
if you're driving or, okay, just listen. If you're driving.
I
but
was
still.
kayaking this morning during.
You were what?
opening. I was kayaking this morning during opening and I had it, I had
Cool.
earphones in and the phone in front of me.
Um,
And, when it wasn't a panel, I was not sitting at the computer at all. I
Good.
had earphones in I was listening most of the day.
Oh,
but
good. Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that you were able to combine the two. That's awesome.
Well, and I think a lot of people do.
I just maybe not enough people realize they can. You know, maybe
I
that's
don't know.
also.
I mean, I'm not very technical knowledge, but I had, sometimes it was on here, sometimes it was on the iPad, sometimes I was on the PC.
There you
I
go.
have headphones and stuff and.
It
I
might
was-
not be the Zoom itself, but the way in which you get to the Zooms. Because this is my first year and I almost didn't participate today because I was like, oh, I got to go through Discord and then I got to go through Zoom and I have to have 2 new accounts because I don't have any of them. And I'll be honest, Discord is not the easiest thing to come into and feel comfortable
No,
with.
it's not.
Yeah, and you know, maybe we can figure out for next year, we can figure out a better way to do that where we don't have to, you know, to post them only on Discord. You know, maybe we can figure out a different way of doing that so that we can, it'll be easier for some people to get in. Because you're right, especially if you're out and about, then trying to get into 2 different things to get to them is a challenge.
I mean,
Because,
it would
like,
be
I-
Yeah, you do
possible-
have to kind of be prepared for that. No
Yeah.
question on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
last night I figured out, okay, now what can I do if I do this or that?
Yeah.
Well, and
But
like I registered
unfortunately,
and
with, the other platforms that we know about, Discord is about the only one that's friendly enough to allow us to have the privacy that we need, because we can't put it on Facebook. Not
Yeah.
all the fans are on Facebook. We can't put it on the forum because not everybody's in the forum. And
But I think we can figure out ways to email the links to people so
I was
that
gonna say, that's
they're
but
what
not
I-
everybody,
private.
gets their emails in time to get it. So there's
yeah.
all
Well, that's
sorts
why I was saying that, you know, maybe we can come up with more than one way, not just one way, you know,
Yeah.
so
well,
that,
you could just do a password protected basic website that just lists all the links.
yeah,
Like then when
something
you
like that.
register, here's the password to access the website.
Or
Yeah.
maybe just have some discussion before it starts about different ways that people can enjoy the thing. So, maybe remind people, Ellen, you weren't sitting at your desk the whole day. I certainly wasn't. Maybe people just need to know they can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they just need a reminder that they can do that.
Yeah, and that's good ideas. Thanks. We will definitely look into that. And, you know, even in the last 4 years since we started doing this, there's a lot of things that have changed, you know, so things change so often that sometimes it's like, oh, great, you know, the last time was 6 months ago and oh, look, it's completely different. Look, for example, having to use a different registration system basically this year, you know, switching from Eventbrite because Eventbrite changed everything they did and we could only have and if we wanted to do it for free, which, you know, we do want to do this for free for everybody, that Eventbrite was like, oh no, you have to pay us money unless only like, I think it was 20 or 25 people could register for free. And I'm like, well, that doesn't work for us, you know, or for a couple of other events that I was using Eventbrite for. So I was like, I have to go find a new one now. And then I found Ticket Leap, which actually I think I like it better than Eventbrite. It was some of it doesn't work quite the same, but you know, from the general perspective, I think it was a lot easier. For those of you who used it to register, did you have a preference one way or another between Eventbrite and this year for Ticket Leap?
It was fine.
Yeah. I
Cool.
don't even-
Yeah, I feel like it
At least
was
it
pretty
wasn't-
well.
At least it wasn't any harder. Yeah. So that's good.
No, it was pretty easy.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Yeah. So unless Ticket Leap goes crazy, we'll just use it again next year. But again, with a hole, who knows? You know, between now and next year, they could go, oh no, pay us money. And they'll be like, all right, I'll find somebody else. I do have an event that we charge tickets for, and so that one's gonna work out really well, I think. But that's not a Vera thing right now. So
As far as things that we really enjoyed, I thought that with all the mix of different things and, you know, having chats in between and educational things, and I don't really participate in the trivia, but it's fun to watch, and I think it's fun for the people that do it, and it's a big draw for the people that do it. But as far as the educational part, Michelle Thaler knocks it out of the park for me every time.
absolutely, yes, I agree on that one.
Yeah.
Her slide presentations are spectacular, and her way of describing things is just amazing.
I love the passion she has in
Right,
describing
her
things
enthusiasm.
and her enthusiasm.
She
Yes,
loves it. She
And how
loves it.
accessible it is to those of us who are not scientifically trained.
Right.
per se.
And but she doesn't talk down to you about it.
No.
She has all this information, but
Yeah.
but she doesn't say, "Hey, you peons," you know. I mean, she wouldn't have to say
You
that, but she doesn't
idiots.
act like it either.
I
you
know what you mean. Yeah, nothing
she
ever
wants
feels
to
like
share
she's
it.
going, how come you don't already know this? Yeah,
Right. She doesn't come across that way at all.
nope.
But I mean, I just my daughter is a physics teacher in high school, and she is not interested in these kind of books or anything like that. But every time I share with her, when we finally record it and it's on
Yeah.
YouTube, she's just enthralled too with,
Oh, good.
yeah.
I'm just excited she lives 90 miles from me. Like,
It's like,
how cool is that? She moved from Maryland back to Wisconsin. Yay.
well, and one of the people on the Hollywood panel said they were originally from Wisconsin.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
I was
missed
almost
the
tempted to
minute.
put a comment out there when she said I was born in Milwaukee. I was like, yes, homie.
Who was it? Was the girl, the
Waukesha. She
Jane?
went to
Is that who it
Waukesha
was?
South High
Jane
School.
Kaywood or whatever her name was? Wasn't that the person
The
from?
one in the upper
I
left-hand
thought it
corner.
was Laura.
Huh? You thought it was
No,
Laura?
it wasn't Laura. It was the one
Julie.
that was in the
Julie.
first one in the upper left-hand corner. I can't
At
remember
least
the
she was
names
in-
right now, but
Julie was in the upper left-hand corner of mine.
Oh,
Julie,
okay.
that was her name. I was like Julie, Jane, something like that.
Yeah.
She wasn't in my
Judy-
left-hand corner, but
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I forget people's screens line up differently, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Yeah, I almost said something. I was like, yay, Milwaukee, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
where
that
does
was cool.
Richard live?
Well, I mean, I
In LA?
found out one of our trivia winners lives 7 miles from my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so a lot of the
Yes,
people
where
on the
Richard lives.
Richard Joel.
Joel?
Yeah, he's out in LA.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that everybody that was on the Hollywood panel lives
Is-
out in LA.
Yeah. The place to be if you're in that line of work, for sure.
Oh yeah. Steve Sears lived here in Florida for a really long time. He went to high school here too. So but then I don't know how long ago it was he moved out to LA. But yeah, it's been a while.
Mm.
And I always feel like I have to go, no relation. We checked. Okay. Yeah.
You're not
The DNA test.
Well, when I refer to him, I'm sorry, as Steve, no relation to Teri Sears.
Right, exactly. Yes. And yeah, because we pretty much because there's just not that many people named Sears. Whenever you run into one, I think that's pretty much what all of us do is sit down and try and figure out if we're related to each other or not. And we're like, yeah, okay, no, yeah. And I've run into a couple people that were like incredibly distant cousins, but you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. There's an actor named Teddy Sears, and I think that, you know, like our great grandparents or like cousins or something was the best we could figure out. So, but yeah.
Oh,
Trying to think. Was something else. Okay, so Michelle's panel was really awesome. Bridget's would have been really awesome.
The writers panel was
the
cool.
discussion
writers
panels
panel.
were both really good. The
Writers
author
panel was
panel
really
was good and the Hollywood panel was good.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of them today were very good. good speakers, good topics.
Yeah. Really sad that Joel was just feeling so under the weather. I hope he gets better. Joel, I did it again. Richard. Joel. He
Easy to-
reminds me of my cousin Joel. And so the fact that his last name is that and that he looks like my cousin, just my brain goes wanting to call him Joel all the time. Richard. And yeah, but at any rate, yeah, Richard, sorry that he's not feeling very well. How did you go? Okay, so Vera was on a couple of panels. She wound up chatting on the improv science panel, and then her two other panels. Did everybody enjoy having Vera on the panels and answering questions about her books and stuff, or just chatting in general?
Yeah, I think that adds a whole lot to everything.
Yeah, me too. It's fun to get to see people. I don't know how to say this. It's going to come out weird, but to even on the Hollywood panel where it's like people that you see from afar and you get to realize that they're just normal people, that you're like, hey, they're just like me, and they just have different jobs.
Well, that's kind of like with Richard Leacock. When I saw him in that episode of Picard.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
that's Richard. Yeah.
Oh, I know that guy. And then I, rewound it and then go, I definitely know that guy. And I happened to be watching it with Danny. And he said, well, how do you know him? I said, he was at our first tag con. And then I told him something, funny that he'd done. And so, oh, okay. Well, are you going to get him? Yeah. I said, yeah, we're going to ask him again. And we're going to keep asking him till he gets sick of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And of course, the first time I was like, I know who he is. I've seen him on Doc. And yeah, so.
Well, what was interesting with that panel, the Hollywood panel, to me, was that how much that hustle is. That if you're going to work out there, more than 90% of the actors, writers, producers, whatever, they're hustling all the time for jobs, and they're doing gig jobs left and right, whether it's voiceover or acting or live acting or film acting or creating their own little film like Richard Leacock is doing with his brother. They're constantly having to fully use their
The
creative
people that
energy
are in the tiny minority. The ones that aren't having to hustle are a tiny
the
minority.
rest are just out there hustling and living the best they can from day to day, just like the rest of us, only they're not sitting behind a desk as many of us did or do.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I don't think about the fact that in some ways it's just amazing that I have this job that I've had for so long, and I don't have to wonder every day, is my job still going to be there, and what kind of thing. Yeah.
I know.
I was listening to them talk and thinking, I could
totally.
not live a life like that. I
Like
couldn't
they
do it. That's just
No,
so not me. But
No.
seeing these people and how excited they are and how they love it and everything, it's great that there are people
the
like that.
energy.
That would not be me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I as they were saying what they were saying about, literally feeling like their soul was dying when they were in a corporate or a regular kind of
Yeah.
job. I'm going, I drew energy from having my job, and I felt that, and they said, and they also mentioned how they suddenly felt like they had purpose in their lives when they followed their dream. And I'm going, I kept my job for so long because I felt I had a purpose. That's what I did. Only my job happened to be behind a desk, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think
And
that's
the thing
part of
is,
what makes life interesting, is that
Yeah.
everybody has a different
Different.
purpose, and everybody feels different about what theirs is. And if
Mhm.
you're lucky enough to get to do a job that you love,
Yeah.
then you've won the
Doesn't
lottery,
matter
so to
what it
speak.
is. If
Doesn't
it's-
matter what it is, right? Like I saw my dad come home every day from his job, and he started at Delta when I was 1, and he retired when I was like 30, I think. So that's how long like 29, 30 years that he worked there, right? And I remember as a kid, him coming home all the time and talking about how miserable he was at his job and how much he hated his job. And I wound up with a job where most of the time I love my job. Nobody's going to love their job every day. I don't think that
No,
you're
not every day, but
but if you get to say mostly that you love your job, and I thought, I'm so much luckier than my dad because I like what I do, and he hated what he did.
it's terrible that he spent his life doing that and felt like he had to.
Yeah, exactly. And so I figure that, if you can find that thing that you love that feels like you've got, gives you a purpose, that I think that's really the same thing. It's just different words, that makes you lucky. It's just not everybody's thing that they love is the same. But that's also good because we need people to do all kinds of things, That's why I tried to explain to one of my friends one time because he was like, "Oh, somebody shouldn't be doing that job." And I said, "Dude, first of all the jobs that exist need someone to do them. and, and second of all, you shouldn't trash somebody who's working. They're working and making money to live their life. It's just not what you would do or what I would do, but we shouldn't trash them because they're doing what they're doing, as long as what they're doing is not, criminal, it's, that's a whole different conversation, but, should be happy for these people. They're doing something they like to do, or at least something that they can live with, as opposed to, like I said, my dad, who was miserable all the time, that one you don't want. Yeah.
Yeah.
No job is
think
too
that's one thing
small or too great if you enjoy it.
Exactly.
And too many people work just to get that paycheck. And they don't enjoy what they're doing.
Right. I mean, if it comes down to homeless or work a job to get the paycheck, okay, yeah, sure, go work the job to get the paycheck, but you should also look for something, that makes you happy, while you're doing the paycheck job.
Be happy in the job you have, because a lot of it is attitude you bring to it.
Yeah. And I have no doubts that some of my dad's misery was self-inflicted because he was just that kind of person.
Yeah, for some people,
There are people that won't be happy
what
with
they're
anything,
doing, they're
and
being
that's,
happy.
yeah.
Yeah. And my dad was definitely one of them.
Well, I'm glad you're not.
Thank you. Yes, I tried. I always said I use my dad as an example, but not in the way most people think.
You learned a lot from your dad, but not that he was trying to teach you those things.
Exactly right. Yes. Here's what not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I could not see myself being miserable all the time. That's just got to be, if you'll pardon the repetitive word, a miserable existence. But anyway,
I think that's one thing that makes our panelists so great, and like the panel's so great, is because everybody loves their job.
Yes.
Like the writers
That's
love their job.
very obvious.
Vera
Yeah.
loves her job,
Yes.
and it makes it, they have that enthusiasm and it's contagious.
I see all the things that Vera does to, promote her books and everything. And I think, okay, I probably could write fiction if I set my mind to it, but I couldn't do all that other stuff. That would drive me crazy. I'd be like, nope, I'd have to pay somebody.
And I know when we were, the various days we were sightseeing, where's Vera? She's up there doing another TikTok.
Yeah. God.
We'd have to wait for her. Okay, well, let's give her a few more minutes to do her TikTok, and then
TikTok,
then we
exactly. We're like, all right, yeah. But she has to think about all of that stuff all the time, and that works so well for her. And I just, like I said, I look at that and go, nope, not my cup of tea. And yeah,
I would not do TikTok.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, not just the TikTok thing.
Oh, I know, that's just
all of
one
it,
thing.
yeah.
That's just one thing.
Yeah, one in a list of many. Yes.
But she's
And
got to
it
use,
is-
she's
and
got to
it
use all the
is-
evidence she can. I don't like TikTok either, but
Yeah.
she's got to use all the evidence she can.
I know, it just would drive me crazy, and making them. Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
oh,
Well,
And I-
one of the groups she suggested that we join to, kind of help her with promotions was the book talk baddies.
Yeah, on Facebook.
It's a lot of young indie authors, and some of them, if they write the way that they post on Facebook, these are not books I'd want to read.
Not my thing,
I
exactly.
looked at it a little bit and I'm not interested.
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel the same way about a lot of fanfic. It's like not the kind of thing I like reading because I like better grammar and better spelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, I will, in doing a review, I will take stars off for grammar and spelling.
Mhm.
and I've got some friends who they almost read nothing but fanfic. I can't even remember the last time they said that they've read as I used to call them, real books. Not fanfic, right? Okay, so I said, how can you do this? Then, and I had the discussion about bad spelling, bad grammar, bad plots. And they're like, I don't care. I'm just reading it to have fun. And I thought, but for me, that would not be fun to read. And I just don't get it. And they're
Yeah,
like,
but
yeah,
for
it
me,
just doesn't bother me.
For me, that's painful because I want to print it and get out my red pen.
Exactly. Yeah. If I want to get the red marker out and I haven't even got off the first page, and yeah, but then I've read some quote unquote real books that like I couldn't even get off the first page because I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I can't even figure out what's going on. And I've read the first page 2 or 3 times. I'm like, not for me, and yeah, so it's not an exclusive thing to fanfic. It just happens more, I think, in fanfic, and I know that there's some good writers out there. It just seems like they're harder to find is all.
Well, I think a lot of
They are.
self-published people don't even have people like Vera does
Read their stuff.
reading their stuff and helping them make sure that it's clean,
Well, the other,
grammatically and punctuation, etc.
yep, I was gonna say the other thing is, even if they have some people read things, like I have a friend who writes fanfic, and what she said was, I don't have anybody read my stuff ahead of time because I wouldn't change it anyway.
Really?
Even if it was just grammatically wrong.
Yeah, because she says I write what I write, and no one should tell me to change it.
Oh, good.
Okey-dokey. Well then,
They realize how edited most.
I hope she's not writing for a living.
Yeah, no, not if she's
thank
doing-
God. Yes,
But most, the whole point of the publishing companies is that the editors would clean up so much that,
Yeah.
and they would cut stuff out of the book, they
Or
would.
go back and say this plot point doesn't make any sense, but if you
Yes.
change this, it'll be better. Like they actually did editing, yes, and suggested rewrites and things like that. And there's so many people these days that are like, oh no, what I write is
And that's just,
perfection. Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, you're too full of yourself.
Yeah, or on some of the places like AO3, they'll say positive comments only, which means
Yeah.
they don't want to hear if anything's not right or spelled wrong or whatever, or they put the wrong version of to, or whatever. And yeah, crazy.
Well, I know, I know on that Facebook group, somebody's, oh, well, I'm going to be publishing and I'm looking for advanced readers and, blah, 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 this is how you can sign up. And I'm going, well, okay, if you're, just based on this post, number one, your genre just doesn't appeal to me. I don't care if vampires and werewolves get together and they shift and bite in between.
Yeah.
That's not my thing.
Right. Yeah.
And then you didn't put any triggers of what the heck is it?
Oh yeah, you didn't put trigger warnings. Yeah. And yeah. Oh, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
The other one is so the same friend that just says, I wouldn't change the stuff even if someone asked me to. She writes just, chapter after chapter after chapter. She had one story that was like, I think last time I heard it was up to like 250 chapters or something. She posts them as she writes them, never goes back and does anything, doesn't do an outline. And I'm like, what if you need to write something here that contradicts something back there? And she goes, okie dokie. But I tried to read one of her shorter stories, which was only like 100 pages or something. And she writes voluminously. And again, with the whole couldn't get off the first page thing, because so she's from here in the United States. She's trying to write a story set in the UK with only a modicum of knowledge of words that they use differently than we do. And then she would try and look things up in the dictionary and then to make it sound more British, and it'd be like, the 19th definition of a word would be the one that she picked. And it was like, and it would also say like arcane, no longer in use, kind of by it. I'm like, no, I'm like, literally had to look up 10 words on the first page because I thought, that's not how that word works, I'm pretty sure. And I'd look it up and it'd be like, basically, yes, this is not how that word works. Oh,
It's like the people who try to write a Regency romance but they have them speaking in 20th century. Like,
right.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you imagine Mr. Darcy
so
going,
hot.
awesome? Yeah.
Unless it's like a period piece as a plot point or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, no. Yeah, so it was weird things like that. And I was just like, yeah, no. Yeah, I forgot about those. I've seen a few of those, Shelley, where it's like, that's not how they spoke.
You're just reading. It's like this.
And
crazy.
it's one of those, like you said, Teri, you can usually tell in the first couple pages. And it's like, okay, forget it. This person doesn't have a clue of the period that they're attempting to write.
Yeah.
For.
Right. And then there's other people who will write in the slang of the moment, if you will. So, it's great. Okay, if you're reading that within 6 months of when it was written, maybe you might know what it's talking about. But then some of the slang terms, they shift so much, even in a year, that, you go back and you go, I don't know what they meant, like, for example, if like my peep yeeted this out the window, the hell does that mean? My friend threw this out the window is what that actually means. But how there's getting a little too carried away with colloquialisms, I guess is what that would qualify as. I don't know. Slang. Does slang and colloquialism, are they really the same or are they different?
Different.
Kind of. It almost seems like it's more of a region or class difference in slang versus colloquialism.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And if it's one thing if you're trying to just write a character that maybe speaks that way a little bit, but like when the whole thing is written like that, you're just like, no.
So does Vera do Instagram too?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Not huge, but yeah. TikTok,
Instagram ties
Instagram,
into
Facebook.
Facebook. So, and she was
I don't know.
doing,
Twitter.
which then became X.
X.
Oh, that reminds me. Why did you guys pick the Twitter X for the X thing in one of the quizzes? Did you not realize you picked the Twitter, the used to be Twitter logo?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like,
What was that X was? Because when I was picking pictures for that, it was something, it was like, I was looking for like a knot symbol. And
Yeah.
It's a call sign.
we consulted on that, and I said, this looks like it might be a logo, but I have never seen it before.
It's the Twitter replacement X. Yeah.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like,
Well, it was a call
I-
sign. So a call sign, a logo,
yeah,
whatever.
I know. I was just like, I just thought that was interesting. And I forgot to ask you guys about that at the time. I was like, why
I
did
don't
they?
think any of us realized what
I
it was.
think
Yeah,
that's
none of
what
us
I
realized what it was.
what
Yeah,
happened.
we're like, I don't know. This
realized it
looks
was
like
the Twitter X. And the X Twitter. That's really how I think of it. The thing formerly known as Twitter. But yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it was good while it lasted, and then it got just kind of,
and now it's not. Yeah.
yes, now it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
never
never
did
liked
anyway.
It
it.
was fine until it got
I've
too
never done
political.
Twitter.
Now it's just,
Mhm.
no, I just don't.
I'm not a big fan of hardly any social media. I spend as little time as possible on social media.
I don't do much Facebook. I can't, I go in, I try to go, it's not even daily, I just can't. It was for a while, for quite a while, just for the shoelace, for Vera's groups.
I
But
don't mind, I don't mind Facebook as much, but TikTok, the only thing I ever look on TikTok is when Vera posts something.
Me too. I
Same,
only
I mean,
only go to look at
I would not go to it at all, except
No.
there's a thing that when she comes up, I'll look at hers, and
Yeah.
I think, how does
That's
that do you any good? After I see it, I think, well, that was nice, Vera, but how does that, but it must reach somebody.
Well,
Yeah, I think that in general, we are not the target audience for TikTok.
No, we're not.
No, but
we're just
it's,
there to help her move it.
But
out.
that's why we don't get it. It's just not meant for us. That's
No.
Ellen, do you get it? You're younger. Do you get it?
I quasi get it, like, because I have kids that are into that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, like I understand it, but is it something that I appreciate for myself? Not really. I mean, I
So-
love watching their stuff, and like,
Yeah.
and they'll send me, reels and all these little things, and we laugh about them together. But I would never find any of that stuff because I don't personally seek it out. But I also go through periods of like, I'm super busy or I'm super introverted or whatever. And then I, haven't done anything. And then I get back onto social media or whatever. And so, yeah, but I mean, like, and I get a lot of the stuff, but it doesn't mean I necessarily like it because I'm in that weird, like, in between generation. And I mean, like, I look at nowadays, one of these big trends is to take descriptivism to like the extreme. And what you're talking about, like, well, I wouldn't change it, I wouldn't edit it, I don't care if the grammar's bad, whatever. It's because there's this whole, like, it's almost like a social movement that being a grammar prescriptivist is somehow elitist and it becomes class warfare. And so
Yeah.
that's why you can't say, oh, you should have used this other case here or whatever, because then all of a sudden you're like the bad guy.
I've heard that from a few people that pointing out grammar mistakes so that you sound smarter is being elitist. Yeah, I'm just like, dude, I'm just trying to keep you from looking stupid. Like apostrophe abuse. There's this one guy at work, he can never ever get apostrophes in the right place. And I gave up trying to tell him because he'd be like, no, I got it right. Like, dude, no, you don't. And he's like, well, I don't care. Well, you're writing emails that are going to people in the company that are, this is anyway, yeah.
I guess when the people that you're writing for don't care or don't even notice because they're just as bad as you are.
I think sometimes that's the case, is that they just don't know either. Yeah. So where does it kind of stop? Where do you
exactly.
Yeah.
But then I think, well, we were brought up, I think a lot of us, with, grade school and junior high, especially those, and even high school, like if you're writing your first term paper and you got your teachers are giving you all this feedback and they're saying, you know, you have to put your commas here and you have to do this and that. And
Yeah.
we were very prescriptive. And nowadays I don't think they do that. And when I think that in the 1600s, the 1500s, the 1700s, spelling really and grammar and punctuation really were very personal.
Mhm.
You know, you'd spell the same word 5 different ways. Maybe because
That's
of
why
where you live,
Pennsylvania is
maybe just
misspelled on the
because
Liberty
of-
Bell.
What's that?
Say that again, Ellen?
That's why Pennsylvania is misspelled on the Liberty Bell.
Oh,
really?
yeah, because they
On the-
just spelled it, somebody just spelled it the way.
I didn't
They-
hear on the what?
On the
The
Liberty
Liberty
Bell,
Bell.
she
If you
said
Oh,
it's
actually go
Liberty
misspelled on the
Bell.
Liberty.
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania is misspelled.
I
And
never
I'm like,
noticed
okay, I
that.
get that it wasn't standardized, but like that was somebody's name. How do you screw that one?
Yeah, yeah. And was it just one N or?
William Penn had 2 N's, but
I
if you
know.
look at the Liberty Bell, Pennsylvania only has 1 N.
One N, that's what I was wondering, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but that's, you know, it was very common and it wasn't a big deal. It was, you spelled the way you wanted to.
But
and
it made it more difficult for other people to understand you. I mean, Gwen, or the language teachers talk about what is the purpose of language
Yeah,
and whether or not it's to
Communicate.
change everything. It is to communicate with other people. And if
Yeah.
other people can't understand what you're writing, how are you communicating with them?
That's
You're
why
not.
Chaucer is so hard to read now.
yes,
If you
Exactly.
speak fluent German, it's actually a lot easier.
German is easier.
Well, no, because if you speak German, you can actually understand the Old English better.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I found Chaucer super easy in high school.
Well, it probably depends on which German, High German, Low German,
High German.
High German.
The new language is texting shorthand.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, I
Yes.
hate that.
Oh
I
my
have
God,
to ask my
mhm.
grandkids, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And I don't have
That-
children.
you know,
I don't have
that's gonna
children.
be-
I don't have
that's gonna
grandkids.
make it
So I
way
am
into
totally
more
out of touch
writing.
with all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to ask them. In fact, I had to ask, I have my 9-year-old grandson, who's one of my youngest grandkids, here with me 3 days a week. I had to ask him about something I saw on my phone. I said, what does this mean? He says, well, it means, I mean, it was just, there was
He
about
knows.
him. He's
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
But that's how they grow up. Years and years ago, I used to play World of Warcraft. And when I first started,
So did
and
I.
I got into the chat and into guilds and things like that, it took me about 3 months, I think, of constantly looking up abbreviations, this abbreviation, that abbreviation, that abbreviation, and it's out there, or asking people, what does this mean? But I looked it up a lot because there's a lot of sources out there for those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. And eventually I did begin to understand it. Okay, I see what this means. I understand what this means. But it's a different language.
But
And I think the kids
But it
are
really
speaking
is
a
a
different
language now. It
Yeah.
really is a language, and I think if they had to write it down differently, they would have a hard time writing it in the language we believe is language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true.
I'm
And maybe that's
well,
just the
Jared-
way of the world. That's just what's gonna happen.
And Kathleen, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's the language of the time. It's not exactly the language that we were taught.
I'm a high school.
And then I catch myself going, I wonder what like our grandparents thought of the same sort of thing, you know, where there was a big enough age gap in there, like, you know, not just from my our parents to us, but our grandparents to us, right? Like, did the language change enough in that 50-year span, you know, to be the same thing? Like they, you know, oh, you people talk
My
things we
grand-
don't understand, you know.
Well,
And
and
It's a megabyte.
just the kind of things we say, like Teri, I don't mean to be, like you were saying to your coworker, hey, dude, now how would your grandma think about that?
Right, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
But it's true. Think about Chaucer and the kind of language he used. And then think about people like Jane Austen in the early 1800s. We still read that pretty well, but it's still it takes way more of our brain waves.
it's still
read-
to us. It's
Yes,
still
it's well stilted or more
formal.
prosy, flowery, formal.
Yeah.
It's in a nice way for me. I like reading that, but a lot of people don't. They can't stand it. And then think about the Civil War soldiers writing. Have you read any of the letters that they wrote home? Oh my God. And I mean, these are kids who are probably 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, who maybe went through 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
And they're writing such
Adjectives that they
beautiful language, you know, it's this gorgeous language.
Mhm.
You know, by the 20th century, that's all gone, you know, that extra flowery, beautiful.
Well, and then you think about
much more
the
disregard.
different genres now, especially like with the dark romance and all that. Fanny Hill.
Yeah,
It-
Fanny Hill.
It's is it either 17th century or 18th century? I think it's
Yeah,
18th.
yeah, I think 18th century, yeah.
That was one of the semi-unbelievable things I found about Nefer McKay having those ancient scrolls on the desk in front. They're like, oh, I want to read those. And I'm like, you couldn't read those. They're 12,000 years old. You can't tell me the language has not changed in all that time. No matter how pure people try and
Right.
keep the language, it
It
changes.
changes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, even if you can read it, the words don't mean what they used to.
no.
Well, and they used, I mean, their punctuation was different. They used a lot of capitals and words that we would not capitalize normally.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about how difficult it is to read Chaucer.
Capitalize
And that was
anything.
nowhere near 12,000 years ago.
No, that was like
No.
400, yeah, yeah. I was listening to this linguist talking about how the language has changed. It's really changing now, and a lot of it's being driven by young women who are talking like, are you talking about me? What are you doing? You know, it's
Oh,
almost
no.
like an Italian, they're putting an but you told me about that yesterday, and they're adding a little. I can't even describe it because I can't talk it. You know, I'm not. But they're adding a little at the end of a lot of words, and actually in another generation that's going to become it's
don't
not
think
a
I've
new
heard
language.
that.
It's a new
The
kind
new
of a
girl.
accent. They'll have a different accent than we have.
What were you saying, Sharm?
It sounds like a new version of Valley Girl.
I was just going to say,
But it's more.
and think how long did that last? You know, I mean,
No.
some language changes are fads. They're here and then
Yeah.
they're gone again.
But this linguist seemed to think that this was that it was changing. How,
Maybe regionally.
no, this is kind of around the country, young
I
women.
don't know that I've ever heard anybody speaking that way, that it, at
It's
least
not
now that
quite
it
as-
registered in my head.
Not as accented as what I just did it, because I don't know how to do it. But they played some recordings of girls talking, and it was very clear that on a lot of words, they weren't ending with the hard consonant, especially. They were adding a little on the end, and it's I equate it to you know how people talk and they end every sentence on an upbeat.
Yeah, that vocal
Drives me
fry
crazy.
thing where you end all the words as if they're questions.
Yes, and that's kind of a way of it. It takes power away from the person talking.
Right, because instead
Work hard in my
you're
job
saying,
not to do that.
you know, is that a thing? As opposed to, is that a thing? Or like, I mean, that actually was a
That's
question.
a question, but yeah.
But I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But yes, I've heard people
We're
do that
going to
where
the store
it sounds
tonight.
like everything they say is a question, even when it's not a question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the way they do the uptick at the end of the word on the inflection.
Yeah, and so this kind of putting that little softness on the end of hard consonants softens what a person's saying in
Got
a
you.
way.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
But I don't know. I just find it interesting how language does keep changing, and that includes
Oh, look, your head
spelling,
disappeared.
grammar, and
I made India's head disappear. Look at that.
At the risk of
my
sounding like a
goodness.
total nerd,
That
I
was
feel
my
like
headless
linguistic
cat.
comfort zone is about like, it's almost like a bell curve. Like you can get about 2 generations on either side. But then once you get outside of that, you are going to get a lot less comfortable, and you're gonna have a much harder time, communicating or
Yes.
reading. I mean, even like, I'm a Gen X person, right? And I'm fine with like anything before me, but I've got millennials speak down, I've got Gen Z speak down. My youngest is a whole different generation, and she's using words I don't even understand.
And because I'm a generation or two beyond you, that
I'm a
that-
generation beyond you.
no, you're only a few
I'm
years.
77.
Well, I'm 69. I'll be 70 this year.
And
You're-
I'm 70, so
you're-
that's not a whole different generation, Kathleen. It's a few
But-
years.
Yeah, but in any
Except that
case,
I'm
I don't understand those young kids. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I'm 60. I guess that makes me one of the young kids in that case. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
have a
We're,
son. I have a
we're
son
we're the younger baby boomers, Terry.
Yeah. What were you
I'm
saying,
the-
Kathleen? You have a son, what?
I have a son that's 53.
Oh, wow. Okay.
my
Yeah.
kids are all in, yeah, I have 4 kids, but they're my youngest is 49.
Shelley,
Yes.
was that linguistic thing called vocal fry?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I heard it on NPR.
Well,
On-
vocal fry, as far as I understood, was the thing where, yeah, partly they do the making everything sound like a question, but also instead of speaking in a normal voice, they kind of do this all the time, where they're kind of doing a
stoner
gravel
talk.
and it's
thing.
talking in the back of their throat.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's
That's
combo.
the stoner talk. That's Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, everybody, it's been fun.
Yeah, I think we're
Yeah,
getting past the end of our.
Yes, we are.
Thanks for
I
sitting
didn't
here.
stop
Yeah.
everybody because we were having too much fun, but yes,
Yeah.
we're considerably past the hour we intended this to be, but I am so happy that everybody stuck around to chat. And even though we didn't spend a lot of time speaking about the books, we had a lovely conversation. And thanks to everybody for all of the lovely ideas on what we can try for next year. And if you think of other ones, just email us or, catch us on Facebook because most of us are there. And you can, I know Nancy doesn't always like to have people talk to her in Messenger, but I'm okay with that. Message me anytime you want.
No, I am
All right.
one that is definitely opposed to it. So,
Right, yeah. So
but then
I'm good.
I've got my own reasons.
I totally understand. Yes. And but I'm okay with it. So yeah, anybody can do that and I can pass along the info to anybody.
Mhm.
So anyway, thanks everybody. Anybody
Yeah.
want to make any last comments before we call it a night? I know.
This
Thanks for hosting. Thanks for
Bright and
putting a
early
lot of
at
this together,
8
you
a.m.
guys.
or 9 a.m. Eastern time with the art and costume showcase that Liz will be the MC for, the host. And
I thought there was something before that.
Can't wait to see
but
that.
there's
It's a reading.
A
There's
reading.
another one.
It's a
author
pre-recorded reading.
Oh,
you-
yeah, there's a
you can do
YouTube
that
reading, right?
anytime.
Yeah,
But that could be done anytime.
yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
on YouTube. But the
All right.
first live
good night,
thing
everybody.
is at
Hi,
9
Mary.
o'clock Eastern.
Yeah. And I'm gonna try
Alright.
my hardest to be there, but that's 7 o'clock my time, so I may not be awake.
Yeah.
Get out.
Oh, well, I
Totally
have to be there
understand.
because, yeah. So.
All right. Well, good night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good
Night,
night.
night, everybody.
everybody.